I get that question a lot from people who are starting off and they have a small company or even large company and they're trying to figure out like how they can make use of machine learning. So I think the best way to think about it is in any way that you would think about how you want to improve your product or your business. So basically it's by asking the right questions about what do you need to solve, what does your product need, what does your application need, what does your business need, and then figure out, is there any way that I can use all the data around me to interpret it and to predict things that relate to my business problem or my product problem. So what I'm trying to say is that some people maybe go the other way around and they say, oh, I'm just going to apply machine learning and I don't know what I'm solving. And I think that's wrong. So basically you need to understand what you want to solve, what is your business problem, what can you get out of your product, and then figure out, and maybe the initial approach is a very simple approach. You can hand code a rule and say, okay, this is what my product needs to do whenever it finds this or that data. But after you hand code your rule, then the next step should be thinking, well, there has to be a more intelligent way to figure this out than not by a hand coded rule. And that's when machine learning comes into place. As you start exploring the world of machine learning, you'll realize that one algorithm is going to be feeding into the next one, and you're going to have maybe some complex relations where in one algorithm is outputting or figuring out what's the value of a given user, and that's being used as an input of another algorithm that then is figuring out what recommendation to give to that user, right? So yeah, it's not only about one single algorithm. I mean, in any product like Quora or Netflix, where I worked before, there's always going to be like dozens of different algorithms that are specializing on one particular aspect of the product. And then there's many ways that you can combine them. But I go back to what I was saying before. I think the key here is you want to start simple and figure out what's the essence of the problem you're trying to solve. And eventually, you might need to go into more complex solutions that might involve several algorithms feeding into each other. But I think there's a lot of value for starting simple and only making things complicated if you really, really need to make them complicated. Right? Simplicity is a great way to start, but I think what makes a great machine learning product, or what makes a great use of machine learning in a product, is this seamless integration between the complexity of the algorithm or the approach that you're following and the product itself. So at some point, it needs to become sort of like clear for the user that whatever functionality you've introduced is really useful and it's not getting in the way. And I think that's the key thing here is when we think about machine learning for product design, we're thinking about really three different things, or even more. But the essential one is you have to work on the machine learning algorithm. You have to work on the product design that is going to make use of that algorithm. And you also need to work on the system side that is going to support and scale that algorithm to sort of like probably large amounts of data, right? So making those three things work together and in such a way that the person who's using the product says, hey, this actually makes sense. This is a recommendation that is really helpful and it's making me love the product versus something that is actually getting in the way and maybe not that useful. I think that's the key to making a successful machine learning based product, is the integration between the machine learning algorithm, the product side, and the systems.